Okay, hey, good morning. You can have a seat. How's everybody doing? Great. Like, there's a couple people that are really excited, and the rest of you, you missed your cue. How are you doing? Okay, we're gonna warm it up today. I'm really glad to have you here. My name is Drake. I'm the pastor here. Our mission here, the reason that we planted City Church 7 years ago was to help people find their way to God from where they are. And we do that by practicing the way of Jesus together in Boulder. So no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you're loved, you're safe, you're welcome here. We're really glad to have you. Our desire is to meet you where you are, help you take some next steps toward Jesus. And so hopefully that's experientially true for you today as we gather. And so thanks for being here. You guys feeling good about it? Yeah. Okay, all right. Before I get into the message today, we are in the middle of our series through the gospel, the eyewitness account, the good news account of the life of Jesus through Matthew, one of his followers. And so we've been going through the summer series. You can always go back on our YouTube channel and our podcast and pick up the work that we're doing in community. And then we take our weekends and then we work those together into our city groups. And so this week especially is going to be awesome. This is our last week of city groups for the summer coming up. And today's teaching is leading into all of that as well as the community night. So really excited for all of that. But as always, you can use that podcast and YouTube channel to like kind of keep up with the work if you didn't make it on a Sunday as we practice the way of Jesus together. Now, before I get into the text today, I have one unique announcement that I want to share with you that I'm very excited about. We have an all-team meeting coming up right after the weekend gathering, August 16th. So if you are an active member here at City Church, that means you've gone through Growth Track, you've signed the document, you're actively serving and participating in community and city groups, all the things, then this meeting is for you. If you're not a member of City Church, you're loved, we're glad you're here, you're not invited to this meeting. Is that cool? Okay. But here's what's awesome, and I'll tell you about the meeting in a moment, but that day, August 16th, even if you're not a part of the team, you do not want to miss being in the room. We have one of our partners from India that's going to be here that day, sharing all that God is doing all across northern India. We partner with them in prayer. We partner with them financially. We take teams over there, not really to help. We're not very helpful, but to be inspired by all that God is doing. And so we're taking another team in February, which is awesome. And so the leader of that movement, listen, friends, like I know it's hard on paper to comprehend, but in a decade, in the last 10 years, they planted over 10,000 churches, have seen over 1 million people saved and baptized. Come on. Like, and it's like, that's just the beginning. Like literally, it is not slowing down. It is incredible what God is doing in Asia right now. And so, our friend's going to be here, but for security purposes, because persecution is quite high in India, we will not have the service live streamed that day. We will not be recording anything. We're not using their names anywhere publicly in order to protect them, okay? And so it's important that you're in the room because you will not catch what happens at City Church that day anywhere else. It's right then and there. If you're going to be serving in kids that day, I believe we're going to work to make a private recording of that available that explodes or turns into smoke after you listen to it, something like that. Secret agent style. And so anyway, it's going to be an awesome day. Not only do you get to hear what God is up to, but then also we're inviting you into some more opportunities with the orphanages that we work with, the church planters that we're working with. And so it's going to be an awesome day and you do not want to miss it. And then after that, again, if you're a part of the team, we're inviting you into a special 2-hour meeting. Lunch is provided, childcare is provided, where we're getting together with this individual and hearing more specifically, being invited into even more partnership, and then also talking about where our church family is, how our budget looks, being honest about all those things and all the opportunities that we have in front of us. Does that make sense? And so, again, we're doing that kind of as a family meeting, if you will, not on a Sunday morning. For those of you that, are not a part of the City Church family at that level yet, we're trying to honor those both spaces. So, hopefully that's also incentive. Join the team. Go through Growth Track. Start serving. There you go. All right. Everybody feel good about it? Okay, it's going to be awesome, and I'm very, very excited. During the service that day, we're going to do kind of a Q&A, and so I'm just going to ask questions, and I'm going to let him talk and share all the crazy stuff that God is up to. Okay, back to Matthew. You guys ready? We are continuing in our series through Matthew, and to start today, I found a really wild and helpful story that hit my newsfeed this week. There's a guy named David Cifaldi, and he was in Montana. I think it was this last week, maybe a little over a week ago. And he was hiking Granite Peak. Any Montana people in the room? No? Okay, cool. I didn't know. I was just curious. All right, so he's hiking Granite Peak, which is the tallest mountain in Montana. So it's like almost 13,000 feet. So not quite a 14er, but still an impressive hike. And while he is hiking with his friends, now he's a professional nurse and like very active, and he's out there doing his thing. And while he is hiking with his friends up Granite Peak, he falls, has a wild moment, and the dude impales himself with his trek pole. I know, take a look for a moment. Holy moly. Now listen, friends, I want you to know they published a video or a picture of him in the ER with his shirt off. And I honestly I was like, let's not do that to everybody today. But it is wild. That is a trek pole that he fell on, and it is going through this is a lat, right? That's your lats, right? He's going through the side of his lats. It missed all of his internal organs on the outside of his ribs. Guess the guy's kind of swole. And it goes through. It impaled him, and then you're like, what do you do, right? Do you leave it in? Do you take it out? What do you do? And he's a nurse, right? And so he has friends take a picture of it. He assesses the wound. He realizes there's no major organs that are affected or anything. And so then he decides to leave it in. And then he goes on a journey with a complete pole sticking out of his body, 10 miles back down the mountain to get medical help over the course of 6 hours. Is that not bananas to you? The dude decides, and again, wisdom, right? He's like, it's better to leave it in rather than take it out and bleed out, right? So it's like wisdom there. But the dude, over the course of 6 hours, hikes back down the mountain. He's like, oh, it's just a flesh wound, like, that's, anybody? That's funny right there. If you know, you know. Okay. Monty Python, for those of you that care. It's honestly incredible. I mean, absolutely mind-boggling. And if you want to see the even crazier, pictures with the shirt off, be my guest. I just didn't want to do that to you without your, permission. So, now, again, he made the decision to leave it in because of a fear of bleeding out, right? Like that would have potentially been way worse. And again, they're way up into the mountain. This might be a stretch of illustration, but I feel really good about it, okay? So you're welcome. I think the church in the West, and listen, by the way, if you are new to church, new to Jesus, or you've been around church, you've got a little bit of church background, I want you to know, we are really serious about Jesus around here, and we do not take ourselves very seriously at all. Or at least I don't. And so when it comes to these conversations, like some of you are your followers of Jesus, you're leaning in and you're like, yeah, I'm all in with what God is doing here. And some of you are like, man, I don't know. I don't know where I am with Jesus. I don't know like what I believe about all this stuff. And I definitely don't know how I feel about the church. That's all good. Wherever you are. Man, we're so glad you're here. But lean in. Today's conversation matters a lot. Now, I think the church in the West, to David's credit here, I think the church in the West has fallen on the trek pole of consumerism. Go with me, okay? Go with me. This is good. All right. So I want you to imagine, I think the church in America, and again, we're going to have our friends from India here in August, on August 16th, and you kind of get these tensions, and then you read the gospel accounts of Matthew and the Acts, and so you're looking at the life and the teachings and the followers of Jesus, and then you look at what we're doing in the West. And I think the church in the West, in America specifically, has fallen on the trek pole of consumerism. And for fear of bleeding out, we just leave it in there. What'll happen if you take that out? And so it looks like this. So from an organizational perspective, there are churches in the West that everything is built around tending to consumers, right? It's meeting your needs. It's making sure it's comfortable. How's the AC in the room? Better than last week. If you weren't here, heads up. I know it's a little chilly. We're afraid to touch it, okay? So we'd rather let penguins run around than it be 85, okay? And so here it is today. But there's a model of church of just marketing and tending to the consumer. And again, we live in this world. I think you know this. We live in the world of consumerism. Individually, right? Like the idea of consumerism is like, man, what happens if I sacrifice some comfort? What happens if I take the pole of consumerism out? Like, what will I lose? Will I bleed out? Okay, so follow me. We outsource everything in this country, do we not? I was in LA, and they have these little robots bumping around the sidewalks, delivering stuff. Have you guys seen those? It's wild, right? And I heard a story on the news of one just goes straight through some police tape into a crime scene to deliver a taco, because they have right? They're like, I'm just doing my job, right? We outsource everything. We outsource our food, right? We outsource entertainment. We outsource education. It's amazing to me. right? To watch, and again, not just, okay, yeah, send your kids to school, but then how we think about the world around us and how, again, we have a consumer mentality. So everything is meant to meet my needs and serve me, and it's about me. And so the number of parents that I have heard complain about they're talking with the school principals and the teachers and things like that, and they're having problems with their kids' behavior. And so then they're having these meetings, and then the parents are like, man, I just expect you guys to be doing a better job. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm sorry, who? Have you heard of parenting? Have you tried it before? Like, have you thought about that? Like, it's wild to me, right? That we literally are so good at looking at our own lives and then blaming everyone else around us for our problems because we outsource everything. The government, right? We want to outsource all of our problems to the government, and then when it's not going like we want to complain and throw rocks. It's the good old, like, Google reviews that you get from Karens, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, man, you can smell and see a Karen from a mile away. If you're a Karen, I'm sorry. If your name's Karen, I'm really sorry. That's not fair to you. But for what it's worth, right? You see that 1-star Google review. I'd give it -2 stars if I could. And then it's like, 15 paragraphs long of something wildly inconsistent with reality. And you're like, don't trust that. If you do trust that, listen, friends, come on. Don't trust it. All right. So, we have this consumer reality that we are saturated in. And all I'm trying to acknowledge is that it exists in and outside of the church, okay? You swim in the waters of consumerism. Whether you want to be a consumer or not, it's part of the air that we breathe. And so then what happens? You come to church, and whether it's intentional or not, there is an operating system in the background of how we relate to life that makes it very hard not to show up as a consumer, to show up for your needs, what you're looking for. And so I want you to pretend for a moment. You start coming to church, or you're exposed to Jesus. You start following Jesus, but then simultaneously you've got this pole sticking out of your lats of consumerism, and you're trying to figure out, do I leave it in or do I take it out? It's like we're all professional food critics when it comes to like our spirituality, right? Oh yes, last week that sermon paired very nice with the flat white. It's very good. Oh yes, like this, last week's was it was a little better. It was more of a dry red kind of sermon, but it's still a really good pairing. Right? I want you to know this week's pairing is going to be 100 proof, like 0 proof bourbon, okay? And like just lean in, okay? Because it's all anyway. That's funny. Okay, all right. I've got all kinds of weird ideas and metaphors in my mind that might or might not click today, but there is the pole of consumerism sticking out of the lat of the American church, okay? Everybody tracking with me? And the question is, what do we do with it? So here's what it looks like practically. And you might, listen, if you're not here, if you've already removed the pole of consumerism from your lap, praise God for you. I'm so grateful for you. That's just not the landscape of the American church. And I'm just being honest with you, okay? And I love this church. I think this church is incredible. In fact, I think the feedback I get consistently, they come to City Church, go all around the world, and they're like, man, I can't find a community and I can't find a church like City Church that's practicing the way of Jesus, is living it out. Like, it's so hard. And part of me grieves for that, but part of me is trying to identify, hey, friends, the American church has fallen on the pole of consumerism, and we struggled to take it out. So it sounds like this. People show up at church, and it's like, hey, don't ask me to serve. Don't ask me to give. Don't ask me to go out of my way to build community in the church. Don't ask me to be vulnerable. Don't ask me to be accountable. Don't ask me to put my needs, my preferences aside and invest in others sacrificially. Are you kidding me? Do you know what's going on in my life? Don't ask me to engage my neighbors. Don't ask me to serve those around me. Don't ask me to share my faith and make disciples. Definitely don't ask me to know how to communicate the good news of Jesus in such a way that it's coherent and compelling in a pluralistic and secular society. No way. Let's let professionals do it. We're going to outsource it. Welcome to City Church. We're asking you to do all those things, okay? And so is Jesus. That's where we are. And so, listen, today I did all of this to preface the very strong teaching from Jesus today. I did all of this to name something that you might not, listen, he turns around and he gets off the mountain, right? Because of the emergency situation. But I think the American church, for the most part, just limps around with this trek pole in its side and says, well, we'll just make do. And friends, I'm just here to tell you that, like, consumerism is robbing you of all the life that Jesus has for you. There is adventure to be had. There's life to be lived. There are 14ers to be climbed. There are rocks to scale. There are lives to be changed. There is more to life than what you currently have in your side. And so I'm just inviting you to consider with me, looking at the fear that creeps in, the apathy that surrounds removing the pull of consumerism. Let me ask you this question. This question came to mind, and it moved me deeply last night. Do you know? I don't know if you knew this coming in. Did you know that you matter to God? Did you know that? Like, listen, everything you walked in with, pole in your side and all, did you know that you matter to God? Like, deeply? Like he's pursuing you? Like the song that we just sang carries so much truth, you can't even possibly fathom it. It's so deep and so big and so amazing that Paul literally says, we can't even put it into words. And yet when you experience it, you're like, yes, this is what my whole life has been aching for. Do you know how much you matter to God? Some of you do, right? Some of you, you've been knocked off your feet. You've had your socks blown off because you've come to the realization of how much you matter to God, right? Yeah. If you're in the room and you know how much you matter to God, come on, let me hear you. Right? Yes. Listen, and I know we have to be reminded of that. I know it's so easy to forget how much you matter. But man, did you know? And listen, I know some of you walked in the room today and you don't know. You don't know that to be true. You don't know if it's consistent with reality. But I'm telling you, for those of you that know that you matter to God, how do you know? How did you come to know that? There's a really, really good chance it's because someone else told you. There's a really good chance that you know that you matter to God because someone else told you that you did. And there's a really good chance that what drove it home was not just that they used their mouth to tell you, but those same people showed you that you matter to God. Right? In the room. If someone told you and is showing you that you matter to God, let me hear you. Yeah? Is that you? Yeah. So, I say all of that to say, did you know that every day where you live, work, and play, there are people all around you that have no idea that they matter to God? Did you know that? And did you know that you could be the one that changes that? You could be the one that changes that. That's the conversation today. You matter to God. And so does everybody you lock eyes with. But not everybody knows what you know. But Jesus wants them to know what you know. And if it's really hits you like Jesus wants it to, then you really want other people to know what you know. And what I would remind you of this morning is that can all be true of you. And then you can have this trek pull of consumerism in your side that makes you apathetic or numb or fearful to a conversation like this. There's a book that I'd like to recommend by Tim Keller called How to Reach the West Again. Small, like 60-page, really short and sweet. It's on our website for free. You can download it yesterday, okay? And it's beautiful. It's just a really compelling and helpful conversation around, hey, you matter to God, other people do too. How do you partner with God in helping them discover that? If it truly is the best thing that's ever happened to you, then you couldn't keep it from yourself. And listen, if you're sitting in the room and it hasn't happened to you or you're just not sure, I want you to know today that God wants to convince you that he has something on offer that you can't get anywhere else. And it's exactly what you were made for and what you're longing for. So I'd recommend that. Now listen, in the conversation today, we're talking about missional living. We're talking about making disciples. We're talking about sharing our faith. And normally there's responses that come from this. There's like offense to that because we shouldn't share our faith with other people because that's offensive. Or there's just an uncomfortability to that. It's like, oh man, I don't know. Yes, I love Jesus and I love that I matter to God, but I am not comfortable talking to other people about this. Or you're just numb to it. Like, you know the stuff, you've read the Bible, like absolutely cool, but you have zero motivation. Your life is apathetic. You're hitting the grind. You're climbing the ladder. You got 5 days a week of 70 hours, just getting after it, or you got all the hobbies and all the things going on. And so it's not the front of the priority list for you. And I would like to invite us to let the words of Jesus shake us up today, to offend us, to make us uncomfortable, and then to shock us out of being numb to what he has for us. So, you guys ready? Decent intro, not bad. Trek pole was a little stretch, wasn't it? It was okay. It was like, yeah. It's all right. Okay, so the biblical narrative, if you're new to the Bible and Jesus and stuff, the biblical narrative is telling a story, a cohesive story about you and God and all of humanity, answering the questions about who you are, who God is, what's gone wrong, how to make it right, that you matter, why you matter, how we relate to God, how do we rightly relate to God, what's broken, how do we fix it, how do we relate to one another, because we're all very familiar with how easily we jack that up, right? Right? Okay. That's just me. Okay. Well, I'm good at messing things up. I just want you to know. Relating with God is one thing because, like, he's pretty consistent, but man, I'm good at making messes around me. And so, right, we have this narrative in the scripture of pointing to Jesus, not only the hope that we have in him, but then the formation that we see of who we can become. And in Matthew, he's been telling a story of not only who Jesus is, but how Jesus relates to the world, answering the question of who Jesus is, who are we, and then now we're getting into who are we to each other. And there's some instructions in the scriptures around like how we are to relate to each other inside the church. So the church is the family of God. When you trust in Jesus, you're adopted into his family, and you get Jesus and God as Father, but also you get brothers and sisters. You're welcome. Right? You're like, dang it, right? Honestly, sometimes like, man, some of you I'd pick, some of you I would not. And so I just want you to know. Okay. That's not true. I think I like all of you. I think so. Some of you are like, I wouldn't pick you. I don't know how I ended up here today. But it's how do we relate to one another? And then also, how do we relate to the world? Those who are not in God's family yet. And so what's really cool today is today's text can operate much like kind of Jesus' manual for his followers on how to carry out his mission in the world. And actually, you see this consistently. Our friends from India that will be here on August 16th, like this is literally, like I kid you not, like they're seeing churches planted and disciples made in the thousands and the millions, and they're literally taking the text we're studying today and just doing the stuff. Village to village, relationship to relationship, person to person. And then God is meeting them in all of that and doing amazing things. And so literally a church planting manual, if you will, a disciple making manual. But here's the invitation today. Jesus is not inviting you into consumerism. I think you know that. But maybe more importantly, what is he inviting you into? Jesus calls us not into consumerism, but rather he calls us to know, to experience, and then to live from a vision of sacrificial love. To know and experience his sacrificial love for us first, and that wrecks your heart and your life in such a way that then you turn it around and you give it away freely to others because you never deserved it in the first place. Does that make sense? Jesus calls us to that. Following Jesus today from this text means carrying his compassion, embracing his mission, and sharing in his offense. 3 main headers if you're taking notes. Okay? Sharing in his compassion, sharing in his mission, sharing in his offense. And what's amazing about all of that is that he promises to be with us and give us the power and the presence to do it. So let's go to the text. You guys ready? Okay. Matthew chapter 9. This is what Andrew read for us just a moment ago. Verse 35, Jesus is going through all the towns and villages. We've been reading all these stories of Jesus healing people and doing amazing things, proving that he was who he said he was. He goes through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming, preaching, declaring the good news of the kingdom. So Jesus is a king. He's declaring that he's a king. He's ushering in a new kingdom. It's his rule and reign, not over brick and mortar, not over houses and structures, but over the human heart and the human condition. So Jesus is coming and he's declaring a good news, a rule and reign over the human heart to fix all that is broken, to make everything straight that is bent out of shape, and to satisfy every longing and deep desire in the human condition. This is the good news. And he's proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and then he's demonstrating the good news of the kingdom by healing every disease and sickness that is brought to him. And so when Jesus sees the crowds, and every time you see that language, it's the scripture authors are talking about those who don't know like Jesus yet, okay? So these are not Jesus followers, the crowds of people. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. We've been watching Jesus do all this Jesus-y stuff. And we love Jesus for this, right? Like, Jesus is awesome. Like, let's go. And then in a moment, he's actually going to look at his followers and send them out to do the same. But I want you to see that Jesus is setting the tone for doing the stuff. So part of it is I want to encourage you to do the Jesus stuff in your life, but you got to do it with the Jesus Spirit, okay? And his default disposition toward the world is not one of condemnation. It's not one of disdain. He's not looking down, wagging his nose and his finger at people like just, oh, this is pathetic. No, his default disposition is compassion. That word in the Greek literally means to feel in the guts. You've ever been there? Where you feel for somebody so deeply, you actually feel it physically. Have you ever been there? Yeah. That's Jesus. Listen, that's Jesus' disposition to you. No matter where you walked in, no matter what you believe, no matter how you're relating to Jesus in this moment, his default disposition toward you is one of compassion. Yes, Jesus is holy. Yes, Jesus is righteous. Yes, he argues with the Pharisees and he flips some tables. Like, absolutely, those are all present, but his default disposition is compassion. And then Matthew uses this language of, where's that coming from? Jesus looks out and he looks at all of these people and they're harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Sheep without a shepherd. How many of you guys have seen the movie Sheep Detectives? Anybody? Yeah? It's got one of my favorite actors in there, Hugh Jackman. I think he looks better like this, though. This is more my fangirl version. And so, Sheep Detectives, okay? Now listen, if you haven't seen Sheep Detectives, it's a cute movie. The movie gives some, it's cute, but gives some serious credit to sheep, right? Like the sheep are the murder mystery, like solving the mysteries and stuff, right? And it's cute, but it's way off, okay? Like Jesus is not sheep without a shepherd, like, oh, this compassionate, nice. Oh, no, that is like so not a compliment, okay? What are sheep? Okay, Sheep Detectives is not it. They're dirty, they're stinky, they're defenseless, right? Why do sheep need a shepherd? They don't have fangs, they don't have anything. They're just fluffy. They're just a snack all the time. That's what they are. To anything out there, they're a snack. And on top of that, not only are they totally defenseless and dumb and clueless, but so many of the problems that sheep experience are their own fault, right? I mean, you know this. You know this, right? Sheep are like, ooh, here's some grass. Ooh, here's some grass. Ooh, here's some grass. And all of a sudden, they've wandered away from the shepherd, right? And so, like, listen, and this is not just here. Over and over again, the scriptures talk about the human condition like we are sheep. And that is not a compliment. So you're welcome. Jesus, listen to the language. Jesus looking out, filled with compassion, is like, it's like my kids, right? Sheep detective, they see a sheep, they're like, oh. That's not, Jesus is not, oh. He's like, oh. Like, oh. You are so dumb and dirty. So many of your problems are your own fault. You are so clueless and you cause so many problems for yourselves and others. You need a shepherd. And then Jesus gladly steps in to be one. Jesus' posture toward people is not disdain, it's not hate, it's not condemnation, it's compassion. But it's also honest. That there's something wrong in the human condition and we need some help. And that's where the mission of Jesus is based. So there's the compassion of Jesus, which is him stepping into our mess, all of the public and the private stuff. And then there's the mission of Jesus of him doing that and then inviting us to do the same, calling us to do the same. So let's keep going. Look at this. Jesus, again, we see this compassionate posture, and then Matthew goes on. Then Jesus turns to his disciples. So these are the people that are convinced Jesus is who he said he is. They're following him. They're all in. And he says to them, agricultural society, the harvest is plentiful. The workers are few. You got a field full of corn. You get a huge harvest, but no one to actually do the work, right? There's all this fruit to be had, but not enough workers to actually get it done, which is a big deal if you're into like agriculture, right? They leave it there, it's just going to go bad. So Jesus, he paints a picture. The harvest is plentiful. There's not a drought spiritually in the hearts of individuals. Like, I know Boulder, Colorado is one of the most unchurched and spiritually resistant cities in America. That's absolutely true, a stat. But Jesus looks at the city and he looks at it with eyes of compassion. And he says, friends, the harvest is plentiful. Where you live, work, and play, hearts are open and ready for all that God wants to do in them. But the workers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest, that's God, ask the Lord of the harvest, the owner of everything, to send out workers into his harvest field. Now, I think this is mind-boggling, because when Jesus says the harvest is plentiful, as in there's a bunch of people who don't know about the life that Jesus has on offer, but their hearts are ready, and all you got to do is tell them so they can respond to the call and invitation of Jesus, right? That's the idea. And Jesus says the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few, and I would think that his next thing would be, okay, so let's pray for the harvest. Let's pray for people, that they could come to encounter the love of God. But that's not what Jesus says. He says, pray for yourself, that you get the dang trek pole out of your side and go do something about it. Is that wild? You don't like that? I thought that was good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Isn't that wild to you guys? I mean, I just love that Jesus is not concerned with the harvest. He's not looking at Boulder, Colorado saying, oh no, I'm worried about all these people in their hearts, right? He's got compassion for them and all their brokenness, just like he does for you. But then he's like, man, if my people would just go. That's really what we need. Is that wild to you? Friends, I just want you to know statistically that is still true in the West. So the harvest is plentiful in Asia, and you're going to hear stories about how they're just getting up and doing the Jesus stuff, and then God's doing what only he can do through them. And one of my favorite things to ask when we look at stuff happening in India is, why not here? Why not here? And I would argue, friends, if I can be as lovingly pushy this morning as I can, if you're a follower of Jesus, I think why not here? Because there's a trek pull of consumerism on our side. We're apathetic, we're fearful, worried. Let Jesus fill you with a new kind of compassion. See, listen, guilt and shame is not enough, like, to do this thing. It's not like, oh yeah, I feel really bad and do better and stuff. No way. What is it? It's the compassion of Jesus that'll change your posture here. You get a hold on the compassion of Jesus for you, it'll wreck you. It'll wreck you. Some of you, your lives suck right now. Your spiritual life with Jesus is so complacent and so stuck, not because God's love is not enough, not because he hasn't made enough available to you, but because you are so distracted with everything else that you forgot the love that God has for you. And listen, that's not a rebuke. Well, it is a rebuke, I guess. But it's an encouragement to say, get your eyes on Jesus. And all of a sudden, your eyes will start going to where his eyes are going. It's not, I don't have to do any of this. I get to. So he looks at his disciples and he doesn't say, hey, if you feel like it. He says, hey, if you're going to follow me, this is part of the gig. Let's keep going. Jesus calls the 12 disciples to him. This is important. 12 disciples, 12 tribes of Israel. Jesus is kind of full circle, calling the people of God back to the original mission that they have totally failed to carry out. And Jesus is ushering in, like, hey, we're going to fix this thing, okay? He gives them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. Does that sound familiar? That's because just a few verses ago, Matthew told us that that's exactly what Jesus is doing. So what's happening here? Jesus is giving his followers his authority to do the Jesus stuff. You see it? This is important, okay? These are the names of the 12 apostles: Simon, who's called Peter, his brother Andrew, James the son of Zebedee, his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the zealot, Judas Iscariot who betrayed him. Like, that kind of sucks to have that after your name, doesn't it? Like, have you guys seen The Chosen? I can't help but read these now and have all these faces in my mind of dude, it's so good. If you haven't watched The Chosen, you should watch it. It's so freaking good. Anyway, all right, and so Jesus calls all of them by name specifically into this. Now watch, he goes on. Matthew keeps telling us. Now, these 12, Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Now, I told you, right? How do you do the Jesus stuff? How do you make the love of God known? How do you let people know that they matter to God? How do you do this thing? Watch what Jesus does. He says, hey, don't go to the Gentiles just yet or enter any of the towns of the Samaritans. And so there's this, he's going to Israel first, and then he's going to expand it because Israel has dropped the ball. He's going to go to Israel first and then expand it to the surrounding regions, okay? So specific instructions for this moment. He says, go rather to the lost sheep, there it is again, not a compliment, of Israel. As you go, proclaim, declare this message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. And then heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Proclaim the good news, and then show the good news. Do with your words and your actions the same thing. There's a quote that floats around in my mind of preach the gospel all. I don't know who said this. Preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words. That's a great quote, but it totally sucks, and it's not accurate with what Jesus is telling you to do. Preach the gospel always and totally use words. Right? Right? Like, I understand the sentiment, right? Let people know that they're loved by God by how you treat them, sure. But if you're hoping they're going to connect the dots because you left a gift bag on the doorstep, God really sees me and loves me. Right? Like, proclaim and demonstrate, right? And the reason that matters is because we live in like a very socially conscious like city and world right now, to where like doing good matters to a lot of people. We have very altruistic postures, and that's all very good things. But then we'll divorce doing good from connecting why the doing good matters to us, right? So Jesus is saying use words and actions, okay? Later, he's going to send out the 70. So right here's the 12. He's going to do the exact same thing again with 70 of his followers. And that's a number of completeness. And so that's intentional. Jesus is not saying this is not for a special few. This is not something you outsource. This is not for the professionals. This is for everyone who wants to follow me. This is what you're going to do. And sure enough, spoiler alert, Jesus dies, is buried, and rises again from the grave. And at the end of Matthew's story, Jesus stands up with all of his followers, and what does he do? Commissions them to carry out the mission, to go and make disciples of all nations. Our mission here at City Church, why we planted City Church, is to help people find their way to God from where they are. Friends, listen, that is not like wishful thinking, like let's preach some really good messages, have some good music, and hope people show up on a weekend. 93% of the population of this city don't give a rip about this weekend gathering. And if we're hoping they're going to meet Jesus by walking in these doors, you're kidding yourself. But that's okay, because that's not Jesus' strategy. You are. You are. And you should take confidence and hope in that. You are invited into something so much bigger than yourself. There is a shared mission to give your life to something bigger than yourself. For the Christian in the room, you are to belong to community. There is no version of following Jesus in isolation. This is important. Back to consumerism. There's no version of following Jesus alone. You're just not going to see it. And I know there's all this struggle. Listen, there's all kinds of permission around how the church looks, right? You go to India with us and you're going to see a house church of 12 people in the middle of a village. But they're also following Jesus to a T. And there's pastors and there's leaders and there's community and there's fellowship and there's accountability. And so there's lots of permission in one sense of what the church can look like, but there's no permission that you can follow Jesus and not belong to his church. Make sense? And you got to deal with this yourself. Read the scriptures, understand Jesus' invitation. But if we're going to meet people where they are and point them to Jesus, it's not something that Drake does. It's not something that Allison does. God's going to use Drake. God's going to use Allison, but we're also in this family together. Something we do together. Does it make sense? Verses, let's keep going. Verse 9. Instructions, okay? Don't get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts. No bag for the journey, as in be light and ready to pivot, okay? Don't take an extra shirt or sandals or a staff, for the work is worth his keep. And so they're going to have provision as they go out. This is very unique to this context, okay? Whatever town or village you enter, there's a huge posture of hospitality in the Mediterranean world, okay? So it's very common for people to open up their homes and take care of traveling preachers and things like that, okay? So that part's common, not for you and I. You shouldn't go knock on someone's door and be like, yo, what's for lunch? Right? That's not what Jesus is after here, okay? But watch the underlying strategy here. Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. That's a unique word in the Greek. Worthy sounds kind of weird. Like, who is worthy? No one, everyone? I don't know. What does that mean? Worthy would a better translation of that would be an open person, someone whose heart is open to you and what you have to say. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. And that's talking about home in the Greek is oikos. So it's not like brick and mortar. It's not talking about the house itself. It's household. It's circle of influence. It's the people in the home, okay? So if you find favor in these relationships, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it's not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Truly, I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. Okay, simple summary. That's a lot. Let me give it to you. Simple summary. Go out with the expectation that you're joining God in his mission. Everywhere you go out with the expectation that you are joining God and what he's already up to. And when you find someone, because you will, Jesus is confident of that is open, lean in. Don't be too busy. Pay attention to what God is doing around you. At the same time, expect that not everyone will be open to you. Right? Notice that Jesus is giving them instructions. Go into a whole town, but you're looking for one person to open their home out of 100 people in a town, 1,000 people in a town. So Jesus is saying, hey, expect actually to be rejected simultaneously. There's plenty of people that will not open their home, but you should go with the expectation that someone will. And he uses this crazy line about Sodom and Gomorrah, which is an Old Testament story. And it's kind of like this proverbial picture of a really evil and wicked city that God brings judgment on. And so in this moment, when Jesus uses this, he's using it as a proverbial picture of God's judgment. He's saying, if someone rejects you when you go into a town, it's worse for them than it will be for Sodom and Gomorrah. And all of his Jewish listeners are like, wait a minute, it was real bad for Sodom and Gomorrah. And Jesus is saying, listen, even more so, what's important here is what people do with me. Right? Jesus is trying to help people understand and wrestle with the weight of what happens when you reject Jesus or accept him. And so summary here is, if you're a Christian, you are sent just like Jesus. Jesus was sent for you, and you are sent alongside him for others. You see, the early church exploded in growth under persecution, not because of professionals, but primarily through normal people like you and me who took the words of Jesus seriously here. They went to their circles of influence, their oikos, where they live, work, and play, and they shared the good news of Jesus. And Jesus says, what are you proclaiming? The kingdom of God is near. Friends, can I give you a picture here? Listen, you don't have to be, don't be scared. What you have to share is really good news. If you found the cure for cancer, you're I'm going to keep this to myself. Right? You have good news here. And so when you're sharing the rule and reign of Jesus, what are you sharing? You get to look at other people, and you get to demonstrate this in your own life, and then you get to share it with others. What does Jesus have on offer? A meaning in life that suffering can't take away. A meaning in life that even suffering can deepen. Right? That's what Jesus offers. A satisfaction that isn't based on your circumstances. Where else can you find that? What does Jesus offer? A freedom that doesn't reduce community and relationships to thin transactions, but deep, communal, sacrificial love? What does Jesus have on offer? An identity that isn't fragile or based on our performance or the exclusion of others and having to prove ourselves worthy? What does Jesus offer? A way to both deal with guilt and forgive others without having this bitterness in our hearts and shame that we carry around. What does Jesus offer? A basis for seeking justice that does not turn us into oppressors ourselves? What does Jesus offer? A way to face the future and death with peace? What does Jesus offer? An explanation for the sense of transcendent beauty and love that we experience, and we get a name for that? It's good news, guys, right? It's not just pray some dinky prayer and go to the good place when you die. Jesus has life on offer now. Listen to Tim Keller here. He says that there are some needs that only you can meet. There are some hands that only you can hold. There are some demons that only you can cast out because of who God has made you to be. And I think that's wildly encouraging. And then I would very simply ask you, what needs are not being met? What hands are not being held? What demons are not being cast out? Because of the Shrek pull on your side. Because of apathy and fear. Jesus is inviting you into so much more. And he's doing the same for me. All right, let's wrap it up. Verse 16. I'm going to invite Daniel to come. I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. There it is again. That's not good. Sheep among wolves? Those two things don't mix well. Last time I checked all the storybooks that I've read. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Listen to this. Shrewd as snakes, innocent as doves. Innocence, right? There's not manipulation. There's not posturing. And innocence to a dove. It's a bird. It doesn't have any guile. Like, ooh, watch out for that dove. You ever heard somebody say that? Like, ooh, he's up to something, right? Like, no. In the same way, shrewd as snakes, right? What is that? What is a snake? A snake in the first century like represents wisdom, as in the patience to be discreet. Right? What does a snake do? Like, stays out of the way, knows when to strike, if you will. Like, right? There's a wisdom to it, right? As in, you need to have wisdom in the world you live in. Like, don't just go around waving like this weird banner of aggressive, like, turn or burn Jesus stuff, right? Like it's pay attention to what God's doing in the hearts of other people, and then meet them with compassion, and then wisdom in the words that you share. And Jesus is very simply saying, hey, don't be unnecessarily offensive. Does that make sense? Right? You guys know some Christians that are just offensive because they like it. You know what I'm talking about? There's some people that really like to be that person. They're like, yeah, right? They love the heat. They love the pressure. They love to be prickly like a cactus. Jesus is saying, please don't be unnecessarily offensive. Why? Why? Because Jesus is offensive enough on his own. Listen, friends. Listen to the words of Jesus. Be on your guard. You're going to be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues for following me and preaching this good news. On my account, you're going to be brought before governors, kings, witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, don't worry. what to say or how to say it. At that time, you're going to be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. So Jesus is saying, I'm going to be with you. Watch what happens next. Look at this. It's crazy. Brother will betray brother to death. Father, his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death, this is extreme. Jesus is drawing a line here because family was everything in the first century, right? So this is wild that you would see the gospel start to get in the way of family relationships. You will be hated by everyone because of me. Who's encouraged? These are the words of Jesus if you're a follower of him or if you're considering following him. But listen, friends, this is also important. Make sure that if people hate you, they hate you because of Jesus and not because of you. Right? This is not permission to be a jerk. And I know, man, there's so many people, right? Some of you in the room, you are turned away from Jesus because you've met people who are absolute jerks and look nothing like Jesus. Jesus is somehow full of compassion and truth at the same time, that he's offensive and it's compelling at the same time. Why is Jesus offensive? Don't be unnecessarily offensive because Jesus is offensive on his own. Why? Well, partly because of what he says about himself. Right? Jesus is like, before Abraham was, I am. Like, I've kind of been around forever. I'm God. Okay. I'm creator, I'm God, I'm judge, I'm the beginning and the end. Everything in your life depends on me. He leaves no room to not respond. His claims about himself are wild and offensive, but also his claims about you. Can we just acknowledge for a moment? I asked you earlier, how many of you know that God cares about you? That you matter to God? Yeah. How many of you also know simultaneously that as you discovered how much you matter to God, you also realized how wild that it is that you matter because of how jacked up you are, and like there's this thing going on inside of you. You're like, man, Jesus' claims about you are wonderful and brutal. Every other founder of religions, right? They say, hey, here's what you have to do to get to God. Here's what you got to do to like kind of live this life in such a way that it works out for you in favor after death or whatever. And Jesus looks at you and he says, you can't do anything. You're helpless. You're broken. You're dirty, stinky sheep. You're so jacked up. You could never make it on your own. So I had to step out of heaven for you. Are you encouraged? Right? That's literally what Jesus says about the human condition. You could never make it on your own. I literally have to do it all for you. You are helpless. And it's so offensive. And so comforting. Because many of us have come to the place in our lives where we were honest on the inside and the outside about, man, I am totally helpless. And Jesus steps in. He says, listen, I'm not a teacher that's come to show you the way. I'm God, and I've come to make a way for you. Other religions, they give us a little credit, right? Other religions are like, hey, try hard. If you like kind of do some things, like you can get there. Jesus is like, nope. Sorry about you, man. You are screwed without me. He gives us zero credit Sheep without a shepherd. Lost unless someone else finds us. If Jesus is really who he says he is, it changes everything, friends. Jesus very simply is saying, I'm not a teacher telling you how to find God. I'm God come to find you. Would you let it speak to your heart today? And he ends this teaching saying, when you're persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly, I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. The student is not above the teacher. The servant is not above his master. It's enough for students to be like their teacher, the servants to be like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebul, how much more the members of his household? Jesus doesn't play on words there. Beelzebul is like a common kind of like slang term to talk about for the Jews, like demonic beings, or maybe for us we call it the devil. Like it's a play on words. And Jesus is saying, people are calling me the devil. They're saying that everything I'm doing is out of the spirit of the evil one. He's saying, listen, friends, look at what's happening to me. If you're going to follow me, you should expect the same. Following me will not be all of roses, and it won't feel good all the time. But take hope and take heart, because I'm going through it for you. Right? Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd who lays his life down for the sheep. You don't grit your teeth and follow Jesus. You just are humbled by the comfort of the shepherd. Jesus says, trust in me, you'll never be alone. Trust in me, and I'm going to be with you through all of it. So friends, if you get nothing else today, very simply, here's the big idea. Jesus was sent for you. Did you know that? Jesus was sent for you. And if you're a follower of Jesus in the room, then at the same time, Jesus is sending you. You are sent like Jesus. So in a city like ours, I just want to encourage you to lean in quickly and pay attention to what God is up to. We have the community night around the corner. Listen, friends, this is strategic, okay? To share your story, to share God's story, to partner with him where you live, work, and play, to say, yes, Jesus, send me and help me to have the same compassion for others. Like, some of you get freaked out, like, how do I do it? How do this is a lot. Like, yeah, hey, listen, friends, you need a little bit of training. Like, yeah, you need a little bit of equipping for sure. But can I encourage you? What does Jesus do? He doesn't do a seminar for his disciples. He shows them how to do it, and then he sends them out. Practice. What do we do here at City Church? We help people find their way to God from where they are by practicing the way of Jesus. Community night is a space of practice. It's a low-stakes environment, like Landon said. What's it for? It's for you to have an opportunity to be slightly bold with very minimal pushback and invite some people who would never come to church with you, friends, neighbors, coworkers, to come and join you in building community on a Friday night at our local bar and drinks around the house. And then, as you do that, you commit not only to inviting, but then to going and showing up. And in the room, you don't just casually hang back and hope the professionals talk to the friends you brought. You talk to the people you brought. And you look for opportunities to share your story and God's story, to connect the dots of this good news, of proclaiming and demonstrating, showing them that they matter and telling them that they matter. Does that make sense? Community night is a place of practice. City groups are a place of practice. Weekends are a place of practice. All for the place that God has called you to live, work, and play. Your hands, your words, your eyes, your ears. There's not another one of you on the planet, and there won't be another one of you. And so can I encourage you to make this evening a priority? Yes, for yourself, sure. I mean, you're going to benefit, of course, like easy, but just get the trek pull of consumerism out of your side and say, I'm going to partner with God and leverage this as practice. Why? You're going to look up after a night like this and say, I could do that on a Friday by myself. I could open up my kitchen table. I can open up my backyard. No one has backyards, let's just be honest, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to invite you to stand. And we're going to respond in a couple of ways. As you stand, our prayer team is going to get ready. Our prayer team is going to be up here at the front and the back of the room. And listen, friends, Jesus was sent for you, and Jesus is sending you. Take courage today. as we stand and as our prayer team comes, I'm going to pray for you right now, and then I'm going to give you some next steps, and then we're going to worship and close out our service. But let me take a moment and pray for you just where you're standing. And if it's helpful, you can close your eyes, you can bow your heads, you can move your body into a posture of open if it's helpful. A lot of times I like to open up my hands just like this and say, oh God, here's where I'm at. Just try to be open and present. So let me pray for you. Father, thank you for my friends in the room. I bless what you're doing at this church. I bless what you're doing in this city. I bless what you're doing in the lives of the individuals here. And God, I pray that there is a resounding clarity for every heart and mind today. Past any words that I could possibly say, God, would you flood their mind and their body and their nervous system and their very spirits with the reality that they matter to God. Take the love of God and shove it down deep into our hearts this morning. For others of us that are following you, would you remind us fresh and new again today that we matter to you, and then fill us with your compassion. Fill us with your heart. For some of you in the room today, it is responding very simply to the invitation. Before Jesus sends you out, he calls you to himself. And some of you today are being invited very simply to trust in Jesus. He wants to save you. He wants to rescue you. He wants to be your good shepherd. He wants to lead your life and fill you with his Spirit. Would you let him today? Others of us in the room, we're following Jesus, but there's a spirit of fear over your life. You're crippled by what others might think. You're crippled about the agenda of the world around you. And today, Jesus wants to set you free from that. He wants to fill you with fresh compassion and boldness. Would you let him? Some of you this morning, you just need to be filled with the compassion of Jesus through his Spirit again. God, fill me to the brim in such a way that my heart literally breaks with compassion for the world around me. Some of us this morning, as we respond, the burden is going to be to pray. Pray for ourselves. Pray for this church. Pray for one another. God, send me. God, send us. God, give us boldness and power through your Spirit. You promise to be with us. And then for all of us in the room that are following Jesus, we will leave this place and you are being sent. Not uniquely from this Sunday, but every day and every moment. The God who loves you is sending you. So God, would you help us to hear what you're doing this morning and respond accordingly? It's in Jesus' name, amen.